We are live here, driving it home with the professor. As you currently see, I'm not driving. I'm in my kitchen again. I'm with a friend, an American, a military man, a martial artist. Probably don't. I don't even have the words to introduce him, but we have Kerry Patton. I don't think he owns a razor, but he could get into that later. Maybe that's not a preferred weapon of his. Um, but Kerry has been a good friend to me, a good friend to my school. I think a good friend to a lot of people. I'm going to let Kerry introduce himself, and then we're going to get into hopefully what I think might be one of the more interesting driving at homes that we've had.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate your kind words. We have a pretty unique relationship and how we met, and the time that I trained under you, and it was more or less I was in the military at the time, working out of Fort Dix as an instructor, teaching anti-terrorism courses, and part of the Phoenix Raven program, which we do a lot of hand-to-hand combatives type of training. And I don't know if you recall or not, but I first went to Phil Miglarice, a good friend of yours, out of Balance Studios in Philly, and then he knew because of the distance and my workload, being out in New Jersey and Central Jersey, uh, he recommended me going to your studio, well, your gym, and that's when I first met you was through Phil, and it was a matter of I distinctly remember walking in that day, introducing myself, and said, "Look, I'm not here to get a belt. I have no interest in doing anything competitively. I need this because I'm training U.S. military personnel on physical survival, hand-to-hand self-defense, and what I need is real-world, no nonsense. Help me be a better instructor to teach these guys what they need to know going overseas." And my hat's tipped to you, Marco. I've never said this to you personally, but you taught me a ton more than just self-defense, mixed martial arts, and so forth. You taught me a million lessons about life, humility, and the power of the brain and confidence. And I got to tell you, during that time that I was being groomed by you, I was training. I think I could say pretty easily we trained over 200 students in probably about a 2 or 3 year period that I took the skills that you taught me and ingrained that in those students as well. And it's very, very rewarding to know that I had a guy like you and a guy like Phil that had my back to ensure that America's best of the best were getting the highest quality training they could receive. So thank you for that.
Well, no, thank you. I mean, you guys make the kind of the ultimate sacrifice, things that I've never, I, I never even thought about doing some of the things that you've probably done or ventured to do. Um, so no, thank you for the kind words. I really appreciate it. So what, I know you're no longer in the military. Kind of what's your life like now that you're not training, the guys to go overseas and do the things that need to get done?
Yeah, I left the military in early 2007 and immediately became a contractor. And most people think of contractors as Blackwater type of guys that do personal security. And interestingly enough, I went a completely different route. I got into unconventional human intelligence. So I was basically, in a nutshell, going out and meeting and building interpersonal relationships with locals from abroad. And it wasn't just Afghanistan. I mean, I went to places like Bangladesh, Nepal, Lebanon, and I worked for an array of organizations, government organizations that were affiliated with the intelligence community. So my survival in doing what I did really was brain power. And I'm definitely not the brightest tool in the shed, but I think I have some street smarts, and I'm pretty personable. And I do enjoy learning about other people and other cultures and so forth. And that's one of the things that brought me closer to the mixed martial arts community. people don't realize it, and I don't think most MMA guys really even think about it like this, but we're very tribal. Think about the different types of people that interact in your classes alone. I mean, you got guys that are in high school all the way to guys that are 50, 60 years old in all different walks of life. You got blue collar workers, white collar workers, cops, firemen, military. You got everybody there.
Right.
But when we come together, we're one big tribe. And I really, really admired that within the community, and that's why I've been such a fan for so long. You know, just knowing that there's so many more lessons other than just putting an Americana on some guy or a guillotine. You know, it's that bonding and understanding that people, no matter how diverse we are, we have so many commonalities between us, and that transpires over to the world that I was working in, learning how to get along with people that are vastly different than you and work with them.
Wow. So it kind of sounds like, I would assume, right, that the military kind of brotherhood is very similar to the martial arts brotherhood, and then these kinds of, as you referred to it as the tribe, gave you the ability to connect in these ways that might be more difficult for someone that hasn't been through these wars, so to speak, in the gym, or the physical exertion that you do with your brothers next to you when you're training someone to be a counter-terror expert. So that's pretty sweet, I would say.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, well, think about it like this. I mean, look at one of the greatest UFC fighters today, right now. Whether you like his personality or don't like him, it doesn't matter. One of the top guys in the UFC is Tim Kennedy. You know, Special Forces, U.S. Army Special Forces. He's still in the National Guard Special Forces. He's a co-founder of one of the greatest online apparel companies today, known as Ranger Up. So think about what he was able to successfully do from the military standpoint and just basically move that into the MMA world. I don't think too many guys could do that. And now what we're seeing is there's more and more military representatives that are in professional mixed martial arts. It's because there's so many commonalities there. I mean, your work ethics have to be on par every single day, no matter how you feel that day. You have to give it its all, because your survival in the ring depends upon it. Your survival overseas depends upon that. You got to rely on your trainers, your coaches. It's the same thing with that teamwork, that we ingrain in one another while we're serving abroad. So there's a ton of things that do come together in the MMA world to those that serve their country.
So it's interesting, because what you're saying kind of leads me into the next question. Now, not too long ago, I did another Driving It Home episode with a friend of mine that I met in Brazil, who wound up becoming the personal jiu-jitsu coach for one of the sheikhs in the United Arab Emirates. And I kind of knew a little bit about what was going on, but he said that there is a push from the top down to get at least minimally Brazilian jiu-jitsu in the school. It's being taught in the schools. It's one of their PE requirements, physical education requirements. So knowing that is happening, right? And you don't know, I'm not making any assertions about what's going on in the UAE, but what I'm saying is that governmentally they're behind teaching their people martial arts. How entrenched in the community that you were serving and currently serve and help is hand-to-hand combat, close quarter combat, martial arts training? How important and how entrenched is that currently?
I'll tell you right now, the guys, and when I say guys, I mean the troops, they get it. They know the significance behind learning MMA. And it doesn't have to be BJJ, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. It could be Krav Maga, it could be Muay Thai, it could be, it could be anything, really, judo. It doesn't matter. What matters is the guys understand that when it comes to mixed martial arts, there's a discipline there. There's a work ethic there. And there is a time that nobody wishes they ever have to engage in those techniques while they're abroad, but they understand it's a tool in the toolbox, no different than your M16 or your M4 rifle or your 9mm Beretta pistol. It's just another tool in the toolbox. Unfortunately, though, the government today, because of funding cuts in the Department of Defense, it was the first time ever since the U.S. Army Combatives program started. This year was the first time that they didn't do the U.S. Army Combatives tournament. What they did is they did a tournament at Fort Bragg, and Fort Bragg sponsored it. It wasn't sponsored down at Fort Benning, where the combative school is located at, which I attended at one point. And that's disheartening to me, because I feel like leaders don't really understand the significance of what MMA brings to the table for the warfighter.
So you made some interesting comments and things that I'd kind of assumed. So the close quarter combat, the hand-to-hand, whatever we want to call it, the fight training, for lack of a better term, that's something that the people that are operating in your field, or that were operating in the field that you were in, that would be getting to a last resort for them, correct?
Yeah, pretty much.
All right. So, but obviously necessary, because we need what we call last resort tactics, right? You can't just expect your firearms, your knives, your whatever, a brick to be there. You need to kind of, your weapon, at your body at some point needs to become a weapon.
Yeah, it's the use of force continuum that police officers use. You always go to the least amount of force necessary to defeat your opponent, whether it become hand-to-hand pressure point control techniques, asp baton, pepper spray, taser, or a pistol, or any other gun. There's a continuum there of force that needs to be understood in your head at all times. And then when we're talking about MMA for survival, combatives for survival, that means that basically it is a last resort. You're up and personal in close quarter combat battle, where the weapon system, it's compromised for whatever reason, and you need to go face to face with another human being. And it's ugly, and I do know of guys that have been in hand-to-hand combat situations in places like Iraq because of the close quarter battle. But more importantly, guys are incorporating MMA skill sets, not necessarily for last resort survival. It's to control another human being upon detaining them, or right at the brink of you're about to detain them. We don't intentionally just go out and try to hurt and kill people, contrary to what a lot of people think the military or the contractual world is about. We believe in humanity, and we believe that the less pain I can inflict in somebody, the better it will be, because I'd rather somebody alive so I could talk to them later on and collect intelligence, than somebody dead or completely hurt, where every time they look at me from now on, they're going to be like, well, you broke my jaw, or you dislocated my elbow or something. They don't want that, So there's a humanity side behind MMA, just like when you grapple with your buddy. You're not grappling just to hurt the guy. You're grappling out of a mutual respect of control.
So is there another layer to this as well? Because, for me personally, the martial arts is something, the MMA training is something that kind of keeps me on an even keel as well, keeps me not getting my fits of rage, keeps me it allows me to, take a breath, assess a situation, see what's going on. Is that something that you've seen in your, your years of training contractors or military men, that it's helped them become better at their job, much like it's helped me become better at mine?
Oh, yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, it's just like anybody that works out with weights or does a lot of running, or, whatever. It's another workout routine that helps you release some of that high stress that you deal with every single day. And it definitely helps you mentally with your humility. You realize when you get into MMA and you start grappling or sparring or whatever, you're dealing with somebody else, it's a real quick wake-up call that you're not the creme de la creme, no matter where you go. I mean, I remember there was a day in your gym, Marco, the first time I was rolling with a kid. I think he was at the time 16 or 17 years old, and he absolutely crushed me. I was embarrassed by it. At the time, I think I was like 33, 34 years old or something like that. And I'm like, how is it this kid, my age, who has no experience that I have in the real world just manhandled me. And it was a quick wake-up call that don't ever, look at a guy and just make an assumption that he's going to, that you're going to tear him apart. It's the real world,
No, that's great because it does, it's great to see that, martial arts training is kind of universal in the sense of the takeaways and the benefits that it brings to people. Now, kind of switching gears here a little bit, or getting into something that's a little bit, less martial arts related, but kind of more from an overall standpoint. Because this is your expertise, right? Terrorism, how we approach it, how we need to approach it. But as I try to live in a world that I don't walk around, and I have the benefit, since I am a trained martial artist, that I don't walk around scared, right? That's something that I don't want to do, and I don't want to pass that along to my children. We don't walk around scared, because when you walk around scared, you become a victim, right? It's easier to become a victim anyway. But I don't have access to the data and the intelligence you have. I have the news, maybe some sites that I go to, or whatever. But as an American citizen, should I be concerned about terror threats, either internal or external? Like, am I doing the right thing by not walking around scared, I guess, is the real question.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, the threat is definitely real, okay? So should we as Americans be concerned about it? Yes. But we got to keep that concern in balance, all right? And when I say in balance, what I mean is be concerned, but don't let it take over your life and how you live your lifestyle, Do what you would normally do, but be aware of your surroundings and what you're doing and how you can become a potential victim if you get stupid and you're not paying attention to your surroundings. If you don't understand, I need an avenue of escape, when I go into a tight location or what have you. So yeah, the threat is real and people should be concerned. But be concerned with balance. That's the easiest way that I could put it to people.
Okay. So we need to be concerned, but we don't need to panic, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay. All right. So since we do have to be concerned, and we need to be, I guess, vigilant would be the best term that I could think of. Who do we, or what do we need to be concerned about?
I mean, what's interesting is earlier you were saying something about being an expert in terror and counterterrorism and so forth, and I want to be very honest with you. There is nobody in this world, no matter what they might claim, there is nobody in this world that is an expert in terrorism or counterterrorism. So it's the way it is, because it's always evolving. It's almost like saying, well, I got a master's degree in cybersecurity. The cyber world is evolving every single day, every second of the day. So in order for you to be a quote-unquote expert, you already have to be ahead of the curve almost. And that's almost impossible to be ahead of the curve in the cyber world. You could be at the playing field, but you're not going to be moving very far very quick. You just got to go with the punches. And that's the same thing with the terrorism world. So the best thing to explain is, in this terror world, we have to understand that the ultimate goal of a terrorist is to instill fear in people's lives for purposes to change political motivations, societal ways that we live, and economic reasons and so forth. Terrorists have an array of reasons why they do what they do, but they do it through fear. So if you could control your fear, you could actually defeat the terrorists without having to do a whole heck of a lot. And I will tell you, unless you've been abroad and see some of the heinous things that terrorists do, you really shouldn't have a whole lot of fear in you. But guys like myself and guys that have done some things that, I know about, we do have a unique fear that's within us. And that fear might not be consciously, it might be more subconsciously. For example, I lived with a fear, it was a nightmare for years, literally, probably about a year and a half, that I got captured in a village in Afghanistan and I got beheaded. And in a way, it altered what I decided to do in my career and how I was going to do it. So in a way, I could say that the terrorists might have won a battle, but they didn't win the war because I continue to still do what I do for my country.
Okay.
So it's just a unique phenomena right now, the terrorism world, and I would say let the people that know what to do it, but serve alongside us by keeping your eyes and ears open.
All right. So now, going back to the original question, are there kind of any groups that you see or you've seen kind of come across your desk that you say, hey, these are people that are currently a problem or potentially pose a threat that either the American public needs to know about or they know about already, or they need to understand kind of what their capacity is?
Yeah, there's a ton of groups out there. I mean, and the obvious ones: Al Qaeda, ISIS, ISIL, whatever you want to call them. Hezbollah is still a threat, and we know of Hezbollah from the 1980s, and a lot of people forget about them, but they're very real and they're very capable even today.
And Hezbollah, if I'm not mistaken, they're a state-sponsored organization, aren't they?
Yeah, but believe it or not, most of them are. We just don't acknowledge it. For example, very few people in the U.S. government would ever claim that ISIS is a state sponsor coming from Qatar, the country of Qatar out in the Middle East. But we know Qatar's provided them a ton of money, a ton of weapons, some intelligence, and so forth. And I'm probably going to get executed by my colleagues for making that statement, but it's okay. I'm a realist. I got to tell you, man, Marco, I really don't worry about these groups as much as I do our country, as in the citizens of our country. We are so extreme as American citizens. Look at how we are politically. You know, look how we are socially. Look at what's going on with the protests out in Ferguson and all over the country. Look at what's going on with cops today getting killed. You know, because people are so charged for whatever reason they may be. And that's my biggest concern. You know, you look at countries like China and Russia, they're sitting back and they're watching us and they're laughing at us because they know, and the old saying in the art of war is, you know, the best defeat of your enemy is to never have to fire a bullet. And that's pretty much my big concern right now. Are we imploding from within as a country when we do have all these external threats that we have to worry about?
Now, I mean, that's something that I've often struggled with is kind of it seems politically anyway, and I'm obviously no expert, but just a regular random citizen, is that politically everybody draws the sand in the line and says, all right, this is what I want. If not, I'm going to be unhappy, and you guys are wrong, and I'm going to elect my guy, and he's only going to work for me and not for everybody. It seems like the politicians today, once they get elected, right, don't decide that they're going to be representative of the people. They're going to be representative of the people that elected them. And I think sometimes that might cause bigger issues because, you know, certain people get behind one thing, certain people get behind another, and we don't have anybody that kind of tries says, hey, you know what? Let's bring the country together as opposed to tearing it apart.
Yeah, you know, it's hard to disagree with you. And go back to the mixed martial arts world for a second, and let me just kind of blind what we're talking about here back to MMA. When you're talking about political leaders, don't even talk about it as a political leader. Just talk about leadership in America as a whole. There are some great companies out there right now that have exceptional leaders. And there's some really bad ones, as we all know. And when you look at the best mixed martial arts camps, they have a leader. And those that are with that leader realize we're still a team. While the leader might get praise or what have you, everybody realizes they have a role to play to make that leader strive. It could be the coach, it could be the fighter himself. It could be whoever, but as a whole, as a team, we all realize it's not one person that's succeeding on their own. You know, and I think too few people realize that about mixed martial arts. Everybody thinks it's just the fighter. And I think most real fighters would always come forward and say, no, it's my team. My team is what got me to where I'm at today. You know, yes, I used my internal, strength and my mental power to get me to a certain point, but I depended upon the team to push me to the next level. And I wish that our leaders in America would take the MMA world, for example, and use that as an example of teamwork and leadership and how the two have to work side by side with one another.
You know, I think it really goes back to most people, and you know, I've been in the martial arts trenches, right? You've been in the trenches of the martial arts, MMA, terrorism, counter-terrorism, the military, and you know, when you try to make a guy tap out, or you try to choke a guy unconscious, or you know, you guys are shooting whatever it is you're shooting in practice or in real life, those are things that really tie people together, and you kind of realize, man, this guy truly is my brother, even though we might black, white, Puerto Rican, Baptist, Muslim, you know, Buddhist, white, doesn't care, because you know what? This was the dude that was by my shoulder when I needed him to be there. And that's what we're kind of lacking in a lot of the community. So, you know, more people need to realize, hey, I bleed with this guy because he's my brother. We might not agree on everything, but God damn it, I'm going to protect his back just like he's going to protect mine.
Yeah, and I think you just hit the real, you know, nail in his head. We need more of that on the community level. I'm a big firm believer, if you take care of the little things, the big things will take care of themselves. And if we start taking care of our communities on the micro level, we shouldn't have to worry about what big government's doing and what the states are doing and everybody else. Let's take care of our small little communities first, and everything will fall into play.
No, that's awesome, man. I wish maybe the political leaders need to come to us and figure out how to fix. They probably wouldn't come to us, because then we'd fix the problems and they'd be out of work. So we don't want citizens to walk around in fear, right? We want people to be vigilant but not scared. From a standpoint of, say, if somebody, you know, so for me, my first line of defense would be my martial arts training, right? This is always going to be my first line of defense. But now, if you were consulting me and say, hey, Marco, these are the kind of, as a private citizen, maybe you need to look at these weapon systems. You know, is it something with a blade, or is it a firearm? Is it something like that? You know, where do you fall for kind of either, you know, firearms or edged weapons or any kind of weapon for, you know, the private citizenry?
Yeah, you know, if I was consulting anybody about weapon systems, the very first thing I'd tell them is your greatest weapon is your head. You know, what is inside your head and how you think and how you react is really what's going to save you. All those weapon systems are solely tools. You know, they're tools that you utilize to defeat whatever is in front of you. But if you don't have your head on your shoulders the right way, those tools are going to be worthless. And so many folks think, oh, well, I could just go out and buy a pistol, for example, and I'll be all right. But if you're not proficient in the use of a pistol, you're worthless. If you're not proficient in the use of a fixed blade weapon, you're worthless. It doesn't matter what tool you decide to pick up. What matters is, are you going to use your head, and are you going to train with that tool? You know, and so many folks are thinking today that they need to go to the gun stores. And I'm a Second Amendment guy, all right? I do appreciate weapon systems, and I do believe that we should have the right to bear arms. But at the same time, if you're too stupid to proficiently utilize that weapon, I don't want you having it. It's really that simple. So the brain is the #1 tool in the toolbox, you know, and it really, that's where I stand on it, man.
So we can both agree that dumb people shouldn't have guns? Is that what we're saying?
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, I can really appreciate that answer. You know what I'm saying? It's logically thought out. It's something that kind of like, you know, it's just like anything. If I were to teach somebody a technique, then they're training in how to use that technique, a self-defense technique, a mixed martial arts technique, so forth and so on. And the same thing with any kind of weapon, right? I can own a gun, but man, I better know how to use it. Otherwise, it's going to get used against me or shoved up my ass, I guess, for lack of a better, lack of a better term. So, um, so you are for edge weaponry. You are for guns in the right hands and with people that are being well trained in how to use them.
Yeah, they have to know how to use it, and it's not just going out and training once in a while to use it. I mean, you need to constantly train. I have a whole mini arsenal, man, of weapons in my house, and I got to tell you, there's only one or two that I take around with me, and it's because I'm so comfortable and familiar with them, and I'm proficient in them. I'm constantly practicing my skills with them. The other ones that I don't practice as much, it's more recreational use. There's a time and a place, I think, for everything, and that's why when you look at guys in the military, depending on where they're at, especially in the operator world, will depend on what type of weapon systems they're utilizing. When I was in Afghanistan, while I always had a weapon with me, I will tell you 99% of the time it was something very small and concealed because my number one weapon was my mind. Where other guys, yes, we want you to think, and I'm not saying anybody's a robot, but we need you to be armed with a weapon, maybe a sniper rifle to give Overwatch. So the time and the place, the situation will dictate.
Okay, well, I couldn't ask for a better answer. I think those are, kind of things that everybody should be concerned with when they're thinking about taking, if they aren't martial artists, or even if they are martial artists or know how to fight, like when you move into that world of firearms or edged weaponry, know your weapon, know it well, know how to use it, and it's not always the biggest gun or the biggest knife. It's the one that you're most comfortable with. It's going to be most effective. And like you're saying, you know what? If you're walking around the streets of whatever city you're in, you can't have an AR-15 on your back, right? You need whatever little small thing that you can get to quickly and be well versed in it. No, that's great. These are all great tips, and I think the people that watch this and listen are going to really get some really good takeaways. Now, two more things, and we're going to wrap it up. You have little kids. I have little kids. I know we probably want to get some rest, but outside of terrorism. And I know we kind of touched on some of this a little bit of this before, but what do you think are the biggest threats to our freedoms as American citizens?
Our biggest threat is ourselves. It's that cut and dry, man. And I know a lot of people don't understand that, and they think there's more to it than that. But the truth of the matter is that it's very simple. Our biggest threat is ourselves. Our families, our family values have been deteriorated over the years. Political correctness is part to be blamed behind that. How we raise our children, how we maintain relationships with significant others, how we depend upon technology for communications. Technology is a great thing, but if you don't have interpersonal, human touch, technology will only go so far. We see our youth today being raised by single parents, and I understand there's single parents out there that are exceptional parents. I'm not saying anything derogatory towards those people. What I am going to say is, though, where is the second half? Where are the men in today's society raising our young boys and girls? I want to see men stand up. I know there's in certain communities a big feminist movement or women's right movement, and you know what? My hat's off to those women because I think they're doing something, and sometimes it's a little extreme for me, but when you look at the big picture, I get what they're doing. And I think we need to have a men's movement almost. We need men in America to be men. We got a lot of guys, but they're not real men. And when I say a real man, I'm saying a guy who's loyal to their wife, loyal to their girlfriend, a guy who understands, hey, if I'm going to procreate, I'm going to take responsibility, and I'm going to make sure that my kid is going to have a daddy by their side until the day daddy dies. And oh, by the way, I'm going to be the protector. I might not be the guy who's making all the money anymore in my household. My wife might be doing a better job at that, but I'm going to be the man of the house who makes sure nobody is going to step foot and harm my family. We don't have enough of that
So,
anymore. That's just
so
my humble.
you want guys to be on Overwatch. They're the you're the guy with the sniper rifle, making sure that the people on the ground are doing what they need to do and being able to get done what they need to get done.
Yeah, I mean, the hipster movement today is sickening to me. I mean, it's so fake for the most part. I mean, Margo, I've had my beard before Duck Dynasty ever came out. You know? So it's like I didn't grow a beard because I wanted to be some hipster cool guy because that's the new thing to do.
No, they call those lumber sexuals now. You just need to be wearing like a
That's
flannel.
right. No, that's right, man. But that's where I stand, man. I want real guys to sit and drink real beer, real whiskeys, whatever it's going to be,
Right.
But I want them to understand, as a man, you got a responsibility, and your responsibility is to take care of your loved ones.
Well, it sounds like you're describing my dad, because that's what I learned most of the lessons about being a father and a provider from my dad.
Yeah,
Waking up, going to work, coming home. Do you know what I'm saying? Maybe not being able to make it to whatever event that I might be going to, but I now looking back on it, looking at me, what? My dad was providing for our family. He was protecting our family. He was paying our bills for our family. He was doing the right thing because that's what a man does for his family. So I completely see where you're coming from with this. Kerry, in closing, what do you have going on currently? Where can people find you? What kind of projects are you working on? I know you're all over the news and working, as a pundit and a quote unquote talking head and giving your expertise. But if people want to get in contact with you, where should they look for you? And what's coming down the pipeline for you?
Well, coming down the pipeline, I just directed a movie that was inspired by my life and a bunch of guys' lives that I know about, called Nine Line. The number 9, the word line. It's a military term that we use for medical evacuation when the guys go down. And it's really a movie to bring awareness about post-traumatic stress disorder and veteran suicide. We have a crisis on our hands of 22 veterans taking their own lives every single day.
Wow.
And I think most Americans are pretty blind to that epidemic, and it is an epidemic. And the intent behind that movie was to bring awareness. I got a couple more movies that are coming out. I was just in the television show called The Librarians that just premiered a couple Sundays ago on TNT. The number 1 watched television show, over 7 million viewers on the first
Nice.
night. So I feel blessed that I was part of that. So I'm doing a lot more in Hollywood right now with stunt work, acting, writing scripts, screenplays, directing, and so forth. And, I'm part of a company known as AK Waters Productions, LLC. I'm a shareholder. And you can find us on Facebook, AK Waters LLC, AK Waters Productions, I'm sorry. So if you're into zombie flicks, we're doing a lot of zombies. So in fact, one of our movies, Zulu 6 and Texas Zombie Wars, if you combined the television show The Walking Dead with the movie Act of Valor using real special operators, that's pretty much what the movies are,
Nice.
a lot of fun stuff, but that's where I'm at right now. I'm more in the entertainment world than I am with national security anymore. I still do a lot of consulting on the side, though, for the government.
So any of those, what I'll do is any of those links that you can send me, I'll put them in the description, and any kind of publicity that we do, we'll put them in there so people have easy access to everything that you're doing and you're following. I should connect you with a dear friend of mine, former UFC title contender Nate Quarry, because he has a zombie script called Zombie Cage Fighter about his life. It portrayed basically as almost like a zombie, and we did an episode of Comic Book Men with him. They came to our school, so that was kind of neat. But he's a zombie aficionado and a good guy. So maybe I'll off air.
Man, put us together, brother.
Yeah, for sure. I'll connect you guys, and maybe we'll make something happen. And I'm always down to go to Hollywood. I have a face for radio, but anything I can do to help, just let me know.
I'm filming up here in March, man. If you want to be our fight coordinator, you're more than welcome, brother.
I'll definitely do that. Hey, Kerry, thank you so much. I appreciate you taking the time. Good luck with all of your future endeavors, and we're driving it home. Thank you so much.
Hey, you got it, brother.